Good morning. The time is 10 o'clock, and I'd like to call the workshop to order. My name is Christina Shea. I'm Deputy Director of Support Services for the Nevada Department of Corrections, and I'll be facilitating the workshop today. As we get started with the agenda, I'd like to share a few housekeeping items. Please make sure you check in the sign-in sheet. When providing public comment, please state your first and last name for the record and keep comments limited to 3 minutes so we can accommodate all stakeholders. When providing public comment, like I said, first and last name for the record and 3 minutes for stakeholders. The workshop is the first step in the regulatory process as we begin to develop language for Nevada Administrative Codes, NAC, and also some administrative regulations, RARs, that are subject to the rulemaking process. The goal of the meeting is to allow for the department to listen to stakeholders and do our best to incorporate the feedback into the NAC, NARs, so we can move towards the public hearings and also legislative commission. Please keep your comments aligned with the items on the agenda. Any comments or questions not aligned with the agenda items or that are asking specific questions around operational decisions that might have impact on family or loved ones should be sent to the department outside of the workshop. I will be redirecting comments that will be addressed that aren't addressing the particular items on the agenda as they arise. Additionally, we will start and begin with public comment, and additionally, we will open public comment after each item on the agenda that we can, so that we can hear comments and suggestions related to each item separately. So I'd like to move on to agenda item 2, public comment. I'll now open our first public comment, and please keep the comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name, first and last name for the record, and we'll start public comment in Las Vegas and then move to public comment in Carson City.
Good morning, everyone. It's exciting to be here. My name is Nick Shepak. That's S-H-E-P-A-C-K. I am the Nevada State Deputy Director for the Fines and Fees Justice Center. For this initial public comment, I wanted to just open with a couple questions. Hope to get a little information on the record before we dig into the ARs. So my first question is, can the financial ARs or any of the ARs we're covering today be changed without going through the 233B public rulemaking process? And if they must go through that process, can a temporary AR be implemented by the department prior to going through that process? So those are the two main questions I wanted to have answered here to start. Thank you.
Good morning. Can I ask a question first? So we came prepared with questions because we thought it was like a dialogue situation. So are you answering questions while we're here if you know the answer, or are we only just making a statement and going and sitting back down?
Yeah, so during public comment, you can make comments, and then during each of the items that are on the agenda, we'll open it up for public comment. And if we can address the questions, then we can. If not, we'll bring it back to further conversations.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm just going to make a quick public comment then, which is we just wanted to acknowledge and say, we're super excited, as we were all just saying, this is a historic day, really, that the work to start to build layers of transparency and oversight and accountability with NDOC, and to be sitting here really having a say and having a voice in the process. And so I know all of you have met with me, with Return Strong, outside of these meetings, and you also, some of you have been on the receiving end of when it did not go so nicely. And so we just want to know that we do appreciate the openness and transparency to have conversations both in public and prior to this meeting. We have a lot of members. 3 of us are here today representing Return Strong families that are at work or graduations or all of those places and can't be here. And so they submitted comments and questions and concerns to us, and we're going to be bringing them on their behalf. So thank you. Sorry, I'm Jody Hocking, Jodihocking, and I'm the Executive Director of Return Strong.
Thank you. I don't see any more public comment here unless, oh, yep. My mistake, please.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Adkisson, and my comments today relate to this body's effective acquiescence to the legal and constitutional requirement that all prison regulations are subject to the public rulemaking process. Today marks significant growth in furtherance of overdue change related to past bad practices that have left us with fugitive prison regulations. In recognition of this fact, I object to the ongoing reliance and utilization of current fugitive prison regulations. An emergency regulation must be considered in order to ensure lawful classification to offenders and safe operations to our prison facilities until all prison regulations can be lawfully adopted under NRS 233B. The nature of our current fugitive prison regulations does not always carry out the legislative intent, and some classification regulations work to imprison citizens without any conviction by and through fugitive classification regulations. In support of these comments, I have provided relevant portions of 2 ongoing cases related to this matter. Furthermore, I object to this body's failure to afford all interested parties a reasonable opportunity to submit data, views, or arguments specifically concerning incarcerated citizens. In this instance, prison regulations affect every aspect of an offender's life. Despite this fact, no consideration of notice of hearing has been provided to prison libraries or to any offender. This works to prevent interested offenders from having a reasonable opportunity to submit data, views, or arguments as contemplated by NRS 233B.061 subsection 3. Additionally, I object to the absence or failure to provide an agency-specific form as contemplated by 233B.100. Today marks a significant event in our state's history where past bad practice and customs tied to previous unilateral promulgation of prison regulations has devastated Nevada families. My husband, Michael, and I look forward in anticipation to the resignation of certain prison officials that have worked hard to offend the public's interest and have created a liability to our state related to this issue. Again, thank you for finally getting these meetings going. But I'm not sure if these are actual workshops without the Board of Prison Commissioners. So I don't know if they need to be. And then I'm not sure that we're supposed to be limited to 3 minutes. But thank you. I appreciate your listening.
Thank you. And Carson City, do you have any public comment?
There are no members of the public presently for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will close public comment and we will move to agenda item number 3, which is solicitation of comments on proposed new Nevada Administrative Code, NAC. So I'm going to walk through the proposed regulation, and then I'm going to open public comment, and you'll have an opportunity to come up for each item and express questions, concerns, comments, suggestions. So we'll begin. So the proposed NAC, starting with Section 1, changes Chapter 209 of the NAC. It's amended to add the provisions set forth in Section 2 to 5, inclusively of the regulation. In Section 2, the department may not charge or authorize a vendor to charge any markup on the price of personal hygiene products sold in the commissary for any institution or facility, or a markup that exceeds the following percentages for items sold in the commissary for an institution or facility. On page 3 of the regulation, in the table, the product type and the maximum markup are listed. For clothing, the maximum markup would be restricted to 35%. For food, it would be 35%. For religious items, it would be 10%. And for vending machine items, it would be 35%. In Section 3, the department or vendor authorized by the department to provide telecommunication services to offenders shall charge an offender 10 cents per minute for telephone calls. Additionally, in subsection 2, the department or vendor authorized by the department to provide telecommunication services to offenders shall charge an offender the following fees related to use of an authorized telecommunication device pursuant to NRS 209.417. Costs related to the use of several services assembled through the authorized telephone device and the replacement of accessories for authorized telecommunication devices. So there's a table on the top of page 4 with the fees and the charges. Standard use fees included without limitation fees for standard outgoing messages sent by an offender for music, media, streaming services, and games would be 0.5, so 5 cents per minute. Bulk per minute purchases would be 1 cent per minute. Video visitation services would be 0.25, 25 cents per minute. Replacement headphones would be capped at $3.99. Replacement chargers would be $7.99. External electronic mails for family of offender would be at 20 cents per written message. Photo messages would be at 20 cents per photo attached. Video messages would be 60 cents per message, and premium movie subscriptions would be $19.99 per subscription per month. So I wanted to make that clear on the record that it would be a monthly charge. Additionally, the auxiliary fees charged on the bottom of page 4, automated payment fees for credit card debt, cards, and billing processes would be $3 per transaction. Fees for single calls related services through a live agent would be $5.95 per transaction plus 10 cents per minute, which would be the rate of the telephone call. On the top of page 5, there's additional fees for single calls related services through an automated payment system, $3 per transaction plus 10 cents per minute. Fees for other services through a live agent would be $5.95 per transaction. Paper statement fees would be $2 per transaction. A third-party financial transaction fee, except for transaction made through an automated payment system, would be $5.95 per transaction. And additionally, a third-party financial transaction fee for transactions made through an automated payment system at $3 per transaction. So in addition, subsection 3 on page 5 lists out that in addition to the fees set forth in this section, any vendor authorized by the department to provide telecommunication services to offender may, except where prohibited by federal law, bill an offender for applicable state taxes, local, federal taxes, fees, surcharges, and the other applicable taxes pursuant to 47 U.S.C. Subsection 254. Section 4, the department or the vendor authorized by the department to provide financial services for offenders shall charge an offender to make a deposit of use of money for use by offenders with the following fee schedule. For general deposits at a location other than a walk-in retail location, on the top of page 6, there's a deposit amount, the fee for cash payments, and the fees for credit or debit cards listed, ranging from $2.50 for the cash payment with the applicable fees as the deposit amounts increase. On the middle of page 6, for deposits at walk-in retail locations, the deposit amount is listed $4.95 for cash and $4.95 for credit card or debit payments. And additionally, for deposits for inclusion of posting bail, there's a table at the bottom of page 6 that lists the deposit amount and the fee for cash payments and the fees for debit and credit payments that would be allowed under this NAC. Additionally, on the top of page 7, except as otherwise provided in NRS 209.241, the department or vendor authorized by the department to provide financial services for offenders shall charge an offender the following fees in connection with the management of financial accounts of the offender: a copy of checks, $2 per check, and statement fees, $2 per statement. And the department in section 5, the department shall charge the individual account of an offender in the prison's personal property fund for the direct reimbursement of an expenditure for the following. So direct reimbursement for medical examinations, diagnosis, or treatments of injuries that are inflicted by offenders upon himself or herself or other offenders, or which occur during voluntary recreational activities. And additionally, state property willfully damaged, destroyed, or lost by the offender offender during his or her incarceration, including without limitation damages to buildings and grounds of the institution or facilities, damage to mattresses, clothing, tools, or bedding, costs for the search for and apprehension of offender during an escape or an attempt to escape, replacement of a prepaid ticket for bus transportation issued to the offender by the department, birth certificates, items related to offender's work, including without limitation clothing and tools, legal supplies, and in subsection 2, the department shall charge the individual account of an offender in the prisoner's personal property fund for an item or service identified in his subsection of the following amounts: items or services, cremation or burial, $950, drug fees or toxicology tests, $8.50 per test, health cards, $35, photocopies of legal documents, 10 cents per copy, postage for items related to litigation, that would be the going rate for the U.S. Postal Service, and replacement of identification card at $5. So now that I've provided a brief overview of the proposed NAC, I'd like to open up public comment.
Hello again, this is Nick Shepak, S-H-E-P-A-C-K, Nevada State Deputy Director for the Fines and Fees Justice Center. We've worked hard to get to this point, and so there wasn't a lot of surprises here. I want to first thank you for the caps on the commissary. I think this is a huge step in the right direction. We don't have a ton of questions or comments, but we do have some, so I'll work through them here. One is simply a technical change that in the section on page 4, it outlines that there's a charge for external electronic mail, but it says from family of the offender. That word family should probably be stricken from the NAC, as anybody who is allowed to communicate will be able to send this mail, and we don't want there to be any confusion in the regulation that you must be related to the individual. On page 6, there are the charges for the credit card fees for depositing money onto an account. And these fees are, the way they're written currently, and I believe it's just how they are, and it may be that this is what the vendor agreement is, but they're extremely regressive. Somebody who's depositing $300 pays 2.6%, which is in line with the credit card processing fee. However, an individual who can only deposit $10 pays a full 9%. So as written here, we have, for our indigent families and our families that are struggling, they're paying a much higher rate to deposit money onto an account than those families that have the ability to deposit large sums of money. Our suggestion there, if possible, would be to change that to a flat % of whatever the money is, in line with the credit card processing fees. In section 4.2, it states except as otherwise provided, and then the NRS. This is outlined in the AR, so I'm not sure that it's the biggest deal, but it may make sense to put in there that that exception is that the first 2 printed copies of a person's banking records are free. I know myself, when I see a reference to the NRS, I usually don't go running to look it up, and it's much easier to just find it right in the NAC or the AR that you're looking at. In section 5, we suggested this during the an interim judiciary committee, and we believe that item G, which is items related to an offender's work, should be removed from the fees. The vast majority of the money collected over the last 9 years was wiped out by a lawsuit, and this was due to individuals attempting, they didn't have the proper work equipment during a fire under the last administration. It's our organization's position that anybody who is saving the department money or making the department money working either an internal job or through prison industries should not be charged for those work-related items. And we also think that it'll ensure that everybody receives the proper work-related items. There is a drug test or toxicology fee. We believe this should only be charged if the individual tests dirty or positive on that, and they should not be charged for drug or alcohol tests that they are clean on. And then we want, the one question we have, which is to clarify, these fees all the fees that are outlined in here, are these the only fees that the department is able to charge? Can the department add additional fees without going through this regulatory process? I assume so, but assumptions are dangerous, and it doesn't outline in here directly that this is the complete list of fees. Those are my comments and my one question.
Thank you for the comments. Just to address your question, the intent of the NEC is that any fees that are listed in here would be the only fees that the department would be able to charge out of the Offender Store Fund and the Inmate Welfare Fund. So in order to add fees on here, the department would have to go through the 233B process.
Thank you very much.
Looks like we have some more public comment. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kalae Casorso, K-A-L-A-E, last name C-A-S-O-R-S-O. I'm with Return Strong. We have some questions in reference to fees that we'll all cover. First, in reference to the packages, what vendors are you considering expanding to? We have some suggestions or requests for Walk-In Horse, Union Bay, and a religious vendor called Azure Green. How do the items that our loved ones are offered decided upon? A lot more things there are a lot more things available on the packages that aren't offered in Nevada, even for access. How can people who buy the food have say so in what is offered? How much is the 6-month reserve and what does it cover? And lastly, for me, how does the indigent status work for the commissary?
So can we take each of your questions one by one, please?
Yeah, first one. What package vendors are you considering expanding to?
Yeah, so Christina Shea, for the record, right, what's going to happen is the NAC, we're going to go through the NAC process, and then it's going to go through a public rulemaking, a public hearing process in 30 days at the BOPC, just to address another question that came up about that. And then after that, it's going to go to Ledge Commission. And once Ledge Commission has finalized the NAC, we're going to be going out to RFP for both the commissary and inmate banking services. So that's going to be the time where we're going to have the solicitation for bids and all that to be able to really, look at this innovations in commissary and practices at that time.
And how do the items that our loved ones are offered decided upon? Through the packages.
I think some of the questions that are coming are because of people saw what was on the agenda, so they saw an expansion of the package program and had questions about what does that look like in terms of it, and didn't understand that it's just around the NAC language. So that answer, I think, piggybacks on the one that you just already gave, is that.
Yeah, so Christina Shea, for the record, my recommendation for very specific operational questions would be to list them out and send me an email about it. And then as we're going through the RFP process, we can have more conversations about, the multiple package programs, how it's going to work, how the different aspects, can happen. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
So there was another question about people were questioning what does that 6-month reserve look like, that because kind of how we got in this situation is that that slush fund became a huge number. And so there's just, I don't know if that is something that you can answer or not, but I didn't know the answer to that.
Yeah, Christina Shea for the record. So basically what it is, it's a cash flow analysis that Adrian Monroe is going to be presenting in section 4, the AR, the proposed AR that's going to list and, the regulations around the 6-month reserve. So can we hold that question for when we're speaking about the AR, because the reserve, that isn't actually in this section for the NAC. Yeah.
And then that may also apply to the last question of how does the indigent status work for a commissary?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they're on the wrong one, can you just tell us, hold it till the AR?
Yes. Yeah.
They're all blended together, like if it was fiscally related.
Yes, exactly. If it's not on the NEC for this section, I'll ask you to hold it till the next section. Yeah.
And we don't mind at all. I just didn't, we didn't format the questions the right way, so I apologize.
My name is Crystal Voigt. I'm with Return Strong, CRYSTAL, VOIGHT. I believe this one is relevant. So when will the annual review of deductions begin, and how long after each review will each adjustment to the markup happen?
Christina Shea for the record. So the markup will be capped at 35% per the NAC. So the agency will not be able to make any changes to that. The annual review will be discussed under the AR.
Okay.
So I think Jody Hocking, I think the question was that just to clarify, is that there's a max of 35%. Right, but that then there would be an annual review and it could be adjusted. That was the way we understood it, is that it could be adjusted. So when does that annual review happen, and when is it, like every year, and then it could just go to 20%, or it could go to whatever it is? Like, how does that review and the adjustment happen?
Yeah, so Christina Shea for the record, the NAC would restrict the markups to 35%. So the review would happen, and then there would be a mechanism that would happen at BOPC to go through and make the adjustments, but it wouldn't actually affect the markup. There would be a different mechanism that would kick in. That would be subject to conversations around, if it does go over but again, the reserves and all that, let's keep that for the AR conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is in this one, but the NAC talks about the coffee shops. What is it for, when, where, and what does it look like?
Yeah, we
didn't know we had coffee shops, so that I did it when people read it. They were really.
We're excited,
Yeah, we could take that question out. So the coffee shops exist at all the correctional facilities at most of our main 6, correct? I think they were shut down during COVID, if I'm not mistaken. And Director and I have been talking about the idea of reopening them. We don't have any action plans. We don't have any promises that we can make right now, but it's something that we're interested in thinking about, opening the coffee shops back up to be able to give the offenders, access to, connections and conversations and all that, now that we're addressing a lot of our staffing concerns. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We did have some also comments / suggestions that are in line with what Nick Shepak had said in terms of like fee schedules and how like the service fees for making deposits, for making phone calls, that they are really hefty on the worse your situation is, the higher your service pays are. So if I can only afford to, pay for one phone call, I'm going to pay $3 for every $1.50 phone call because I'm not going to lie, I've been in that position years ago. I would literally be returning bottles for phone calls. And because I couldn't afford to pay $50 at a time and have one $3 fee, or if I couldn't get through on, I didn't have Wi-Fi, or I couldn't do it online for some reason, then I had to call in to do it. And then that service fee was again higher. The same thing I noticed right away, that calling in to use their call in and put money on for a phone call. If you're doing a single phone call, is a $5.95 fee for a $1.50 phone call. And so where it would be $3 if you could do it online, but if you can only, because I don't know if you know how it works, when they call you, if you don't have money on your phone, then it rolls over to, do you want to put money on your phone? If I can't do it through the automated system, either because I don't have the right kind of credit card or I don't, whatever it is, I'm going to pay $3 for that $1. But when a $5.95 fee for a single phone call that costs $1.50 is really predatory by that company. So, and that applies to all of those, like you said, like it would be great to see that be just a percentage instead of that. Fee schedule about Visio visits, you want me to not talk about it because it's not, we're not there yet? It wasn't, my question wasn't about fees, it was about infrastructure, so that was what people were asking, so it wouldn't be this.
Yeah, so any questions outside of the proposed NAC, I would save for the AR, the tablet AR, yeah.
I'm trying to screen them as I go through. That's another AR one. The only other fines and fees question that wasn't really a question, and Nick touched on it, I think. I was trying to get onto Nellis to double check it, but I believe in the 2021 session when we got SB 22 passed, that there actually is something in there that they're supposed to get, isn't it 2 a year, Nick? That twice a year they can get a free statement. So my concern about the $2 all the time is that it actually violates something that happened in 21. So we might want to just double check that. That's the only thing that I had for now.
Great, thank you. And Carson City, do we have any comments?
There are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to take a moment to address the Zoom and the public callers. If there's anybody on Zoom who'd like to make public comment under item 3, we also, my apologies, we didn't take the online public comment in the first public comment section, but if you have general public comment, you can make that at the end of the meeting. But if you do have public comment related to agenda item 3, please come forward. We'd like to hear your comments.
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on agenda item 3, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Again, callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. So I'd like to close agenda item 3 and move to agenda item number 4, which is the presentation and discussion of proposed administrative regulations. And again, similar to agenda item 3, we're going to go through each of the ARs. I'm going to ask the staff to come up to the dais or speak about the brief overview to the changes to the AR, and then provide the opportunity for public to come forward and make suggestions and recommendations or comments. So let's begin with Administrative Regulation 204, which is the offender store and commissary systems. And I'd like to invite Adrienne Monroe to give us a brief overview of the changes to this AR.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Adrienne Monroe, Chief of the Offender Services Division for the Nevada Department of Corrections. This public workshop is being held by the State of Nevada Department of Corrections for a proposed amendment to Administrative Regulation AR 204, Offender Store System. The department's rationale for the proposed amendments to AR 204 is to address needed changes to structure and content, to eliminate language that's no longer relevant, and to make changes to store operations, and to add regular reporting requirements. Throughout the regulation, the words inmate or inmates have been stricken from the regulation and replaced with the words offender or offenders. Section 204.01 operations on page 1 proposes to amend and provide the addition of subsection 9. Subsection 9 as follows. The department shall establish an indigent offender program which will allow offenders who cannot afford to purchase commissary and package items an opportunity to participate in this program. The program will be established based on best practices in correctional commissary operations that have these programs in other states and will be included in the contract with the awarded commissary vendor. Section 204.02 on page 2 amends to change from Section 204.02 Security to a new Section 204.02 Financial Operations. Further, Section 204.02 on page 2, Financial Operations, proposes to amend and provide new subsections 1, 2, and 3 as follows. Section 204.02, subsection 1. The Offender Store Fund is a special a special revenue fund, and all money received is for the benefit of offenders and is governed by NRS 209.221. Which requires that the department follow the provisions of Chapter 233B of the NRS for establishing fees, markups, and other charges that are necessary to repay, defray the cost relating to operating and maintaining the offender stores. Section 204.02, subsection 2. The department will not carry more than 6 months of reserves in the offender store fund. If the department exceeds these reserves, they will recommend price decreases and adjustments at the next year's schedule of fees and charge changes per Section 204.05 of this regulation. Section 204.02, subsection 3. Financial reports for commissary operations will be produced on a monthly basis, which shows the profitability of each store location, the total revenue, the total expenditures, and the net profit for each store. Additionally, a cash flow analysis will be prepared monthly. These reports will be prepared by the 15th day of the following month to the Deputy Director of Support Services, with monthly meetings to discuss commissary operations at the end of each month. The addition of Section 204.02 Financial Operations caused subsequent sections to be renumbered. Please note the section entitled Security is amended to be Section 204.03. The section entitled Offender Personal Photographs is amended to be Section 204.04. Section 204.05, Awarded Commissary Vendor, proposes to amend and add provisions under new subsections 1, 2, and 3 as follows. Section 204.05, subsection 1. The department will contract with multiple package vendors for the offender package program. Section 204.05, subsection 2. The Board of Prison Commission shall review the schedule of fees and charges on a yearly basis that are charged to offenders and make this information available to offenders and the public prior to establishing changes to the fees and charges. Section 204.05, subsection 3. Each year, the awarded vendor that supplies the goods and products to offenders through the offender store will have a third party provide a comprehensive national market analysis regarding the trends and comparative markups that are being charged in correctional systems and national consumer markets. The department will then use this analysis to make pricing recommendations for approval by the director. This concludes the proposed amendments to structure and content for Administrative Regulation AR 204, Offender Store System. Defer to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. So yes, I'd like to open public comment. We can start in Las Vegas.
Hello, Nick Shepak for the record, Nevada State Deputy Director of the Fines and Fees Justice Center. First, I just want to commend the department on putting this together and working so closely with us. Everything from the 6-month reserves to the monthly reports to the annual reviews, I think are going to lead to a much more successful program. I think a much more transparent program. We don't have a whole lot of comment on this. Others might, but we think this looks really good. One concern that has come to my attention, which we may want to address, is by including this retail storekeeper, and I don't know if that name has a definition, both in the responsibility section and in the securities section, I know that there are discussions ongoing about ways to improve or change commissary, and it may be possible that, like they do in Florida, that the individuals running the store are not directly overseen by what we now have as a retail storekeeper, but might be overseen by a different position, whether that is a CEO or something that oversees a larger group of people that are running the stores. And my only concern is that by keeping those words retail storekeeper in there, that if you do decide to move forward with some changes to your commissary program, that you might then be in violation of the AI that we're creating. So I don't have an exact fix, but it could be a retail storekeeper or other individual assigned by the director, something like that, that opens it up, that allows you to have that flexibility if you do want to move forward with changing the way that you operate your commissaries. So that was that's my one comment. And then my one question, since I asked at the beginning, and now we're in more of a discussion phase, is can this regulation or any of the others be changed without going through this process, either permanently or through a temporary AR change?
Yeah, Christina Shea for the record. Thanks for the question. So this AR and any fees or anything that are assessed in the commissary would have to go to the 233B process. So for example, the yearly review and the recommendations, all that would just be recommendations, and then it would have to go through the workshops, it would have to go through the public hearings, and it would have to go through a change to the NAC in order for us to actually implement any changes to the markups or anything of that nature.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any more public comment in Las Vegas?
We're going through to figure out like what was AR, what was NAC, and what was operational, so that we don't waste your time.
Yeah, thank you. In Carson City, do we have any public comment for AR 204?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And online, on the Zoom line, do we have any public comment for AR 204?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 204, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 204, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. So let's move on to AR 245, which is the offender medical charges. I'd like to ask Staff Russ Alfano to give a brief overview of the changes to this administrative regulation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Russ Alfano, Medical Administrator for the Nevada Department of Corrections. Excuse my hoarse voice. With the adoption of Senate Bill 416 by the 82nd session of the Nevada Legislature, Section 6, quote, limits the ability of the director for adopting any regulations which authorize the imposition of a deduction of money for the payment of any co-payment for any routine or emergency medical care provided to an offender, end quote. Submitted today for consideration is the draft of Administrative Regulation 245, Offender Medical Charges, which has been revised to adopt the changes outlined in Senate Bill 416 as enrolled. As revised, the draft Administrative Regulation 245 changes put forth include replacing the term inmate with offender and elimination of verbiage pertaining to the co-payment assessment process. I'll defer to the chair unless you would like more detail, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Alfano. I'd like to open public comment for AR 245 for offender medical care or charges.
Nick Sheepak, State Deputy Director of the Fines and Fees Justice Center. Again, we want to thank you for these changes. This brings it in line with the legislation passed last year surrounding medical charges. This AR looks good to us. The only recommendation that we'd have is that we remove the charge for a stolen prosthetic. It's probably not something that occurs very often, but if an individual does have a prosthetic limb and it is stolen, we don't believe that they should be, the individual who stole it maybe should be on the hook for the stolen prosthetic. But it's a really bad day if you get your leg stolen and then have to pay for it. So we'd like to see that removed.
Thank you. Carson City, do we have any public comment for AR 245?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. In Las Vegas, we have more public comment.
I don't know if this is public comment or just discussion, but there were a couple of things that we had in this AR that we had questions about or just wanted to express concerns about.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
What's that?
Can you state your name for the
Jody
record?
Hocking, Jodihocking. I'm like the worst with this whole name microphone button. It doesn't end. We did have a concern also with the language about prosthetics and appliances being stolen or abused, which we did talk a little bit about prior to the meeting. I think that there's just some concerns about those, and Nick summarized them really well, so we'll leave that alone. The other thing that we had a concern about was the section 245.02, where it talks about people being charged for different types of things, and two of the things three kind of, that we had concerns about were people being charged for medical care for recreational injuries or self-inflicted injuries. And both of those, we think, first of all, recreation is so critical to people's programming, mental health, all of those things. And then to then say if there is like an injury that happens in the course of it, you tear your ACL or something, like, we want people to engage in those like positive activities that improve their mental health, improve their functioning and all of those things. So I think it comes back to, do we really want to like then on the backside punish people for having an injury that they may have not had any way to control for participating in positive interactions. And then self-inflicted injuries, I'm assuming that we're talking about suicides and self-harm, and it's so tightly tied to mental health that we have concerns about charging people for saving their lives because they harm themselves. The other question that we have, or not really a question, but suggestion, is in regards to altercations. And I'm going to explain it the only way that I understand it is there are people who are victims in altercations, and that it kind of is like when there's investigations, if you find contraband in a cell, like both people tend to get written up because you don't know who was in power in that situation, all of those. But there are people right now I've brought to you guys that were clearly victims and harmed by, one of the people was beaten with locks and a sock, almost like really badly, ended up in the hospital. We're taking deductions for his medical care because he was not considered a victim, even though he was in a cell by himself, and a door was popped and they were allowed to come from another unit and beat him. He shouldn't be paying for those medical bills. He was clearly a victim in that, unless there's something that clearly I might not know. But altercations become problematic because it seems like we don't decide between victim and perpetrator in those situations. And I assume it's because it's hard to tell sometimes, but we don't think that somebody is a victim in an altercation that they should be paying for their medical care. I think that's all of the things that I had on that one. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment for AR 245 in Las Vegas? Not seeing any. Let's go to the Zoom lines. Any public comment for AR 245?
Callers, if you'd like to provide public comment on AR 245, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 405, you are unmuted on our end, and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Debbie Stiles. I'm the Program Director of Correction Support with the Greater Southeast Advocates Group. I want to concur with Nick on fines and fees concerning the stolen medical devices, as I believe that promotes a victim blaming mentality and therefore potentially increases the rate of recidivism, as it goes against the attitude that we wish to incorporate into offenders, and that they do need to be responsible for their own actions. And I do apologize, but the system would not let me comment on a previous thing. So if possible, I'm just going to insert this right now. The first article that we went over concerning the fees on phone calls is reduced as it currently is 11 cents per minute. And I believe I heard correctly in saying that it's going to be 10 cents per minute, but it's also going to include other fines and fees such as the FDCC, et cetera. And so my concern is that will therefore make it go over the current 11 cents per minute. That was all.
Thank you, caller. And just to clarify, the rate would be set at 10 cents. So that would be the final rate that would be charged for telephones. It would not exceed that. Are there any other callers for on Zoom for public comment under AR 245?
Chair, there are no other callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. Let's move on to AR 258, Offender Fiscal Procedures for Inmate Banking Regulations. And I'd like to ask Ms. Monroe to provide a brief overview of the changes to this AR.
Thank you. Adrienne Monroe for the record, Chief of Offender Services Division for the Nevada Department of Corrections. This is a public workshop held by the State of Nevada Department of Corrections for a proposed amendment to Administrative Regulation AR 258, Offender Fiscal Procedures for Offender Banking. The department's rationale for the proposed amendments to AR 258 is to address needed changes to structure and content, to eliminate language that is no longer relevant, to make changes to minimum requirements for savings account balances for offenders, to add a holding period for certain deposits, and to add the use of tablets to certain sections of the regulation. Throughout the regulation, the words inmate or inmates have been stricken from the regulation and replaced with the words offender or offenders. Section 258.01, Prisoners' Personal Property Fund, PPPF, subsection 1, 2, D2 of this regulation proposes to amend the minimum balance of an offender's savings account from $550 to $950. This amount must be generated and maintained until the offender's release or death. This amount is determined by the director or designee per NRS 209.247 sub 5 and NRS Chapter 233B Administrative Procedures Act. Section 258.01, Prisoners' Personal Property Fund, subsection 3 of this regulation proposes to amend language to include the use of tablets. The Prisoners' Personal Property Fund account activity is available to offenders through a kiosk or tablet. For offenders without access to a kiosk or tablet, a monthly statement will be provided by the Offender Services Banking section for distribution to the offenders. Section 258.03, Offender Deposits, subsection 2A of this regulation proposes to amend a provision that regular deposit coupons will be available for lockbox deposits, and that coupons will be ordered by Offender Services Banking Services and shipped to each institution or facility upon request. Further, subsection 2B proposes to amend to provide that the institution or facility designee shall distribute the coupons in accordance with the facility's operating procedure. Section 258.06, Offender Payroll, subsection 3B, proposes to add a provision of a fourth item, item 4. Please note that this was incorrectly shown as an additional item 3 in the attached documents. Item 4 adds the requirement that all deposits, including checks, money orders, ACH, payroll, or other, in the amounts over $1,000 will be subject to a 14-day hold. Section 258.12, Transfer of Offender Funds, Subsection 2 of this regulation proposes to amend by adding a provision to exclude phone time purchases from the offender requirement to complete an account transaction request form, also known as a brass slip or Doc 509. The other proposed amendment to this section is the elimination of language referencing medical dental copays as they were eliminated in the 82nd legislative session under Senate Bill 416. This concludes the proposed amendments to structure and content for Administrative Regulation AR 258, Offender Fiscal Procedures for Offender Banking. Thank you. Defer to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. I'd like to open public comment for AR 258, Offender Fiscal Procedures for Inmate Banking.
Nick Shebeck, State Deputy Director of the Fines and Fees Justice Center. We have a few concerns, one with a proposed change and one that is an existing concern and has been for some time. The one is the mandatory savings of $950, which matches the cost of cremation. We're unsure that it is proper to require this savings. However, we are currently in the process of doing research to see how other states do this. We do believe that there is a role for a savings account that is mandatory to ensure that people leave with some money. However, this account is not protected, and institutional debt, it can often drive it all the way down, and we know that there are indigent individuals who have money in this account that could use access to it. So I think a larger discussion, and we can provide some research on the best way to handle savings accounts for individuals. And the request there for the department would be really how many people tend to pass away in the department's custody that then this $950 is used for. It'd be interesting and help us with the discussion to know how dependent the department is on this actual savings fund. And then our other concern, which has been, since we really started looking into this a few years ago, is this debt upon release towards the end of the document. Public records requests from the department leading into the previous legislative session show that the average collection rate from individuals who are released is less than 1%. It hovers around 0.5 and 0.6%. However, the fact that in B sub 2 individuals can be sent to collections means that individuals who are released from custody who owe a debt to the department, even though we know we're collecting less than 1% of it, are often sent to collections, which hinders their ability to build credit, rent housing, succeed, and often is a factor for them coming back to y'all. So whether or not we can address that through this regulatory process, or we need to work together in the next legislative session, that debt upon release is something that is very concerning to us and we think should be eliminated, and we think will lead to a much greater success for individuals leaving your system. So those are our suggestions for that. And then also kudos on the removal of all the maintenance fees from the banking system. That was a good catch. Thank you.
My name is Jody Hocking, Jodi, and I just have one quick statement, and it really is connected to what Nick also talked about trust accounts. And I know that is, FFJC does a phenomenal job, and we'll get all the research and state studies together. There also, I think, this is part of just a core values issue with the state and how we look at this. There are people who are doing life sentences, who are on death row, who don't have family support. I know we've talked about the numbers of people that are like asking, can I access my trust fund? Because I don't have any other way to support myself while I'm in prison. We don't have jobs for everybody. Everybody's not going to qualify for jobs. But the reality is, like, then at the end of it, we're basically collecting cremation costs. You know, we don't really have a problem for people who have an out date and they're coming out and they have a trust account that they're going to be able to use while they are in process. But people who have life sentences and death sentences with no out date, like it just seems wrong to be collecting also trust accounts that they'll never be able to use except for their own cremation. And we recently had a family that their loved one was murdered last summer at Ely, and they worked through all of the banking and statements and clearances and all of that to get the money back that was in the trust account, and then NDOC took all of it, and I think she got $25 or $35 out of all of it, and had to bury her husband at the same time. So I think there's a lot of like value judgments that need to go into some of this policy that looking at how and why we do the things that we do. And I know that's not you guys, that's legislature, but we just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Any public comment in Carson City?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about online on Zoom? Do we have any public comment for AR 258?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 258, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 258, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. Let's move on to, we'll close AR 258 and move on to AR 718, and I'll be providing a brief overview of the changes to this AR. AR 718 is for offender personal telephone usage. We've gone through and made some recommended changes to language from inmate to offender. The primary change that we've made to this AR has to do with an initiative of implementing tablets with the hope of, all things considered, allowing free phone calls at each of the institutions. The goal is to have 15 minutes available. So you'll see under 718.02, subsection 18, that offenders the department may allow free phone calls. So that's the extent of the changes to this administrative regulation. I'll close the brief overview and open public comment for AR 718.
My name is Jody Hocking, Jodi HLCKING, and just quickly, if it is in here, I'm not like picking up, it seems to fall between the lines, but there's been an ongoing issue for probably close to a year. Where I became aware of it was at Ely, and specifically Ely on death row, but I know since that time we've heard it happening other places in units where they're locked down and they're using cell phones and passing cell phones to get phone calls. What happened at Ely was it went to these roller phones and they were passing the phone through the food slots. And what we were hearing from people repeatedly is that they couldn't have a confidential phone call. So even their legal calls were happening that way. And through the food slot, I don't know if it's still going because I told them I can't help them with it. But there were concerns that did not meet it didn't meet ADA because people were needing to squat down next to the food slots to be able to take the phone through the roller phones once they took the cell phones or the cordless phones away. And then there was a concern about confidentiality with legal phone calls. They couldn't just sit on their bunk or talk out on the, tier phones. And so I don't see that addressed anywhere about those roller phones and how they do or don't impact issues with ADA or legal phone calls. And so I just wanted to bring that up.
Any other public comment in Las Vegas? Not seeing any. Let's move to Carson City. Any public comment in Carson City?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about online on the Zoom line? Any public comment for AR 718?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 718, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 718, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. Now we'll move on. We'll close AR 718. We'll move on to AR 719, offender visitation. And I'd like to ask Deputy Director Brian Williams to provide a brief overview of the changes to this administrative regulation.
Good morning, everyone. AR 719, offender visitation. Revisions was made to ensure compliance with NRS 209.423, also known as Senate Bill 351. Revisions to format to clear chain of command from the director to subordinate administrators. Some of the primary changes in this AR include provides wardens and correctional managers with the authority to approve visits for individuals who have prior felony convictions, provide an appeal process for these applicants to the Deputy Director of Operations. Another change was other minor changes have been made in formatting for improved clarity and consistency and change the term inmate to offender. I would also like to note that there's another part to our visitation AR, which is our visitation manual, which we're in the works of revising that as well, which will give more detailed information as it relates to our processes and policies for visitation.
Thank you, D.D. Williams. So we will open public comment for AR 719. We'll start in Las Vegas.
Hello again. My name is Jody Hocking, Jodihockking. If it's okay, I thought what I would do is just highlight a few of the things that we would like to just make sure are on public record and then follow up with, and we also have upcoming meetings also, so I don't want to drag this out for everybody. But so one of the questions that we're still unclear on is why the manual isn't included in this discussion. I understand that it's like a subsection of the AR, but there's so much of it that really covers what is needed to know for, and it covers background applications, all of those. So it's like there's some overlap on the two, and we just don't really have a clear understanding of why it's a separate, like it's not included as part of the AR. And so that, we just want that question clarified because our understanding is that it should be. We do, hang on, let me get back to the beginning of my notes. Return Strong has been working with NDOC with a shared visitation stakeholder committee that had representatives from every facility. And the goal always has been that we should find whatever can consistently be done statewide and ensure that that is happening. It'll never be exactly the same because populations are different, facilities are different, and we understand that. But I do just want to say, like, we appreciate the work that is being done collectively to try to figure out what can be standardized because it just makes it easier for everybody. One of our concerns, it really falls, or the bulk of it, especially when it comes in line with SB 351, is the application and background check. There's still a lot of problems with that process. The background check, pulling people records that don't even belong to the person that we're talking about, and it going all the way through the appeal process and then still being denied. There are questions about SB 351 made it so that you couldn't just automatically deny somebody who had a felony. But now the question is what felonies are being denied. And some of the language in the, some of the proposed language makes it unclear whether we're talking about the offender is the reason that somebody's not being denied or if the visitor is the one not being denied. And so it gets a little murky and confusing. And I think when we get to the final version of this, it hopefully will be clear because people should be able to look at it and be like, oh, I'm not going to be able to even apply. Like, why go through that, right? And a lot of people would like to, if that is what the case is, they'd rather not apply and go through like the frustration and people get embarrassed and when they've rebuilt their lives and don't. So I think being clear whether it is the offender or the visitor is the felony that is happening. So what that appeal process is, I know we talked about it, but just to put it on record, is like, we think that there should be an appeal process that goes to at least the director, maybe the ombudsman once that is set up. Not sure exactly how all of that is going to work. I think it holds a lot of weight and accountability. If I'm a warden and I know the deputy director is going to like really look at this and not just rubber stamp it because I said no, now they're going to say no, which traditionally has been what we've seen, that people are going to look at it and fairly review it. And then at the deputy director level, they know if they deny it that they can appeal to the director, and then you can come back and be like, why is this happening, right? I think it holds accountability, and you'll see less mistakes slipping through at lower levels if they know they're going to be held accountable in the appeal process. We also, it's probably not for today, but just for the record, like we do have questions about the ombudsman's role in visitation, like if families are going to be able to grieve to the ombudsman if they've gone through the whole appeal process. Not really super clear, and since the ombuds office isn't set up, I'm assuming I can't get an answer today. We also have, just to express as a concern, we think it's great that there is policy that is being added around special visits, like whether the offender is in the hospital or whether the family member is terminally ill or critically ill, and that there's ways to navigate that now. We do have some concerns about how it will be navigated fairly. Like we don't want it to be subjective of like, okay, this warden, they see your loved one is terminally ill and they will approve it and get you there, and then other wardens are like, absolutely not, it's a safety and security risk, we're not doing it. And the policy is written in a way that's pretty subjective, so it could literally fall that way on a regular basis. We had a lot of conversations about extended visits and for specifically around the abuse of extended visits and how that impacts other families who are trying to get seats in visiting, and we've been concerned about that for a long time. The stakeholders committee did come up with some language that it looks like in the red line version of this didn't get included around like what is the circumference of like distance to qualify for an extended visit, because otherwise, after COVID is when that changed. It didn't used to be that way. So when the policy came out after COVID, it changed to if you were out of state, you could get a visit. But that means if you live in Tahoe, California, you can go to NNCC and you're less than half an hour drive. But if you live in Las Vegas and you're going to NNCC, you're still in state. And so you're not getting that. And so we really spent a lot of time with Officer Nagelhout, who did a great job working through it, but it doesn't look like some of the language got put in there. And we just want to make sure that there's a fair, consistent policy. So, if you're coming from Australia and you come for 3 weeks once a year, then fine, you can get special visits. But so that whole process, I'm assuming we're going to talk about it more next week, but we have a lot of concerns about that. Denials, the big concern with denials is really that omitting any information at the visiting room level that is used very liberally. So you didn't just in the past few weeks, we had one person who didn't check a box that they were married, but they did put all of their names and aliases on it, and they got denied. And they have tried to like appeal that to the warden. Now, there's not a warden there, so I keep telling her it'll get it fixed soon. But like those simple things should be easy to resolve, and it's just like a phone call or send the application back or whatever. So how those denials come, or providing enough, if you're saying somebody's omitting information, providing enough information so they can answer the question. And I know we worked on one recently that the person had a warrant that was, I forget how long, 11, 21, almost 15 years old, 13 years old. And they didn't even know that they had the warrant, and they had lived in multiple states and multiple cities and had previous, like, different, they had addiction issues at the time. So they had different convictions all over, and they were like, I don't know where this is or what they're talking about. I've called everywhere. We were finally able, but they would not give the person the information. I had to call and like get in the middle of it, which shouldn't be necessary. Like if you want people to tell the truth, then you have to help sometimes, because a lot of people who are coming with convictions have a long history of them, and have cleaned up their lives and don't, you know, aren't doing any of those things anymore. I guess as just a summary statement, really, we're just looking for visitation policy that is fair, consistent, enforceable, and well communicated, and that once we go through this process, that at the ground level, those boots on the ground are actually enforcing it correctly, because that is part of the reason that it's only one piece, is that it's very inconsistently followed. You know, Crystal and I could walk in wearing the same thing, and one of us be told it violates, and the other one be told it's fine, and she's going to visit and I'm getting sent home. So it's like that training piece of it with officers is going to be critically important too. So thank you.
Okay, any more public comment in Las Vegas for AR 719? Seeing none, let's move to Carson City. Any public comment for AR 719 in Carson City?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about Zoom online? Any public comment for AR 719?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 719, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 719, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. Let's close AR 719 and move to AR 750, 750, Offender General Correspondence and Mail. I'd like to ask Deputy Director Brian Williams to provide a brief overview of the changes to this administrative regulation.
Good morning again. As it relates to AR 750, our mailroom and our correspondence, in accordance with AB 121, ensure NDOC provides all offenders with original physical copies of mail. We're currently still doing that, therefore requiring no substantial change to the current AR. However, we have added additional language in some of the areas to prevent the introduction of contraband into our facilities. We're looking at adding scanning technology and an imaging system for detection of contraband within our mail. Mail that is electronically scanned shall not be allowed when foreign substances and items are clearly detected. If items are detected but not cleared, the mail will be opened and a determination will be made if suspicious or objectionable contents is found. Mailroom staff shall notify appropriate designated associate wardens for review and possible rejection. If no objectionable content is present, authorized staff shall cause the mail to be processed for delivery to the offender. Also, we added a definition as it relates to photos depicting sexual activity. We're utilizing the term that's listed in Title 18, United States Chapter 109A. We're using that terminology as the definition for sexually depicted sexual activity. We also clarified foreign substance shall be free of stickers, glitter, bodily fluids, lipstick, wax, or any unknown foreign substance on the mail. We also added no instant photos, specifically Polaroids. And other changes have been made in formatting for improved clarity and consistency. And those are the major changes to AR 750.
Thank you. I'd like to open public comment for AR 750 in Las Vegas.
My name's Jody Hocking, JODIHLCKING, and just a couple of quick questions around scanning, and now I just forgot what it was. So in the AR, you said that if there were items that were potentially like this first one, do we have an idea when the scanning starts?
We have Deputy Director Brian E. Williams, Sr., for the record. We haven't selected the actual technology that we're going to purchase yet, but we're putting it in the AR because we are looking at getting that equipment to be able to scan the mail and prevent contraband from entering our facilities.
So it's futuristic.
Yes.
So the question was that if mail goes through the scanner and it identifies that there may be a substance on it. We've heard of stories of people who are like, I can smell my grandfather's cigar. I can, smell your perfume, but it wasn't sprayed on the letter. But some of those things just carry, right? I'm assuming that that's what it means is you'll open, if there's a suspicion, you guys can open it, review it, and decide whether something was, contraband or was whatever. Am I understanding that correctly?
Deputy Director Williams, for the record, yes.
All that to say yes. The other part of the question then is like how that is helpful. There are a ton of things that it will be able to identify, but being that spice is such a huge problem with getting into the facility and specifically coming through the mail, how does it identify or how does it help in terms of identifying spice?
Spice.
That's the problem one, right?
Yes, Deputy Director Williams, for the record. The imaging, and it's like a 3D. I got the details of it, but it's a very remarkable machine as far as it takes the weight. And so when they saturate different objects with the drug or the contraband, it's able to weigh that and tell that it's not just an ordinary letter with ink on it. It's something else absorbed into the paper. So it's able to determine it that way, which alerts us, and then we can do whatever necessary testing to determine what that unidentified substance is on the letter.
And it doesn't sound like this. Oh, Jody Hocking, JODIHLCKING. It doesn't sound like it is like that you have to meet like a burden of proof to be able to unauthorize that mail. There can be a suspicion of like, this is not the weight of normal paper. And so there is a possibility that it is like carrying spice or carrying whatever into the facility. I just want to make sure that I understand how that works, because we know that the legislation actually, could, in the legislation we won has what I call the unless clause, unless the director deems that there is like a long-term problem. And so I want to make sure that I understand kind of the process of where this can go.
So James Renner, for the record, Director for the Nevada Department of Correction. It all depends on the company as well, because some of the companies now, they're getting so sophisticated in their technology, they can actually tell you what is actually in the paper. What it is. So it all depends on the RFP that goes out and what companies actually come in and can provide that. Right now, it all depends on how well we do with doing our RFP process and what they can actually do for us. And it's improving every day, so you'll see that.
And for the record, we don't want drugs going into facilities either, so I'm not asking for anything. We just want to understand in terms of protecting mail. So thank you. Those were the only questions on that one.
Okay. Any more public comment in Las Vegas? Not seeing any. How about in Carson City? Do we have any public comment?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving online, do we have any public comment online for AR 750?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 750, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 750, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now.
Debbie Stiles, Program Director, Correction Support with Greater Southeast Advocates Group. The AR in question that we're talking about with the mail, et cetera, it specifically states, if I'm not mistaken, that incarcerated individuals, should they have a letter rejected, that they would receive a form and the sender would receive a form. I have sent several letters, of course, and many of them have been rejected, and not once have I received a form indicating why it was rejected or what was rejected. They have never sent the letter back. That is also an option. The inmate is supposed to be able to say, hey, I want to send this back, or I want to do this. I believe they have 3 different options. Not once has that option been given to them. I had one time that it was sent back to me, and that is because the back number was off by 1 digit. And when they do receive a form stating it was rejected, it is so vague, they don't even know who the sender was at times. So this is a problem that definitely, I believe, needs to be corrected, because this is it can lead to gross miscommunication between parties. And, you know, when they're not even being told that it's being rejected and the person doesn't receive it back so that they can correct whatever the problem is and resend it, that leads to problems as well. So that's my concern with that one.
Deputy Director Williams, for the record, I will definitely look into that in regards to return to sender and making sure it has the properly completed forms when we do return that mail and the reason why it was returned.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Kara, the public line is open and working, but there are no other callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. So we'll close AR 750 for offender general correspondence and mail, and we'll open our last AR under Section 4, AR 753, which is a new proposed AR for offender tablet use. And I'm going to ask Director James Zorinda to provide a brief overview of this new AR.
So James Zorinda, I'm the Director for the Nevada Department of Correction. As mentioned, this is a new administrative regulation, number 753, which is going to be the offender tablet use and electronic devices. In this, the way this was created, we received multiple directives from other agencies around the country and tried to select what we believe would be the best processes for us to be able to utilize in our department. So you'll see some of this language is already present in some other states already, just in case you notice it. But anyway, the use of this directive came out from AB 35, which was allowed this last session, allowing the Department of Correction to issue electronic devices within the correctional facilities that were utilized for the purposes that we deemed appropriate, which I deem that it's appropriate for the purpose of educational materials and education to the offenders, not to just include GEDs and college courses and college degrees, but also program materials and the ability to also downloading music, audiobooks, videos, video games, ebooks, and other media, some for a charge and others for legitimate penological interests. And also access to public. And that's what the actual AR is, just the process that's going to be, how the issuance is going to be, and the offender's responsibility with the use of those tablets.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for AR 753 in Las Vegas?
Nick Shepak, Nevada State Deputy Director, Fines and Fees Justice Center. I have 2 what maybe technical things that I believe we need to address in this AR. If we look at 753.03 secure messaging number 5, it says offenders may not send or receive any attachments, photos, audio, or any other documents. That should probably say something along the lines of through not approved channels, because we definitely are going to be receiving photos, audio, and other things. That is, you have fees set up for that. So I think the language there is just that there's just probably some sort of typo or pulled from a different document. We just need to clarify that. And then 75304, exchanging tablets and issued accessories. Number 5 also, it says an offender may not receive a replacement if the outcome of the investigation proves the offender neglected to follow the provisions set forth in this directive. There probably should be a timeline on that. Right now it looks like it's absolute. So essentially, if somebody was found to be negligent or to have neglected the provisions as written, they would never be able to receive another tablet even if they paid for it. Absolutely, there needs to be a level of accountability. Tablets are a privilege. We are the money people, not the punishment people, so I don't have an answer for how long you should take away that privilege, but in perpetuity just doesn't seem correct, right? An individual with a 20-year sentence who neglects once should not lose privileges for the rest of their sentence. Those are my suggestions.
Just one question. This is Jody Hocking, Jodihocking. And it was really, our question with this is what happens in terms of, I don't know how to explain it. If there are system failures or infrastructure failures or any of those things, I'm signed up for the $19.99 monthly. How are they refunding? Are they crediting? How does that happen? Because I know that was a huge problem with California, is that they only had one technician to cover, half of the state. And so it would take months to get those situations, but they would still be taking people's monthly fees. Thank you.
Christina Shea, for the record. We're going to be working through, once we get through the public hearing process and then we get through the Leg Commission process with NAC, we're going to be working through in the next couple months the contract negotiations with the NASPO vendor, and who's at this point is Viapath. So we'll be able to enter into conversations more specifically about operational formalities as it relates to the tablets. I'm not seeing any more public comment in Las Vegas. How about public comment in Carson City?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's move online to the Zoom line. Is there any public comment for AR 753?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 753, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment on AR 753, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window.
Debbie Stiles, Greater Southeast Advocates Group. Other states that have had the tablets that have extremely similar plans, if not identical, have mentioned the $20 subscription for movies and other subscriptions. And they say that the 5 cents per minute applies to that. So not only do they pay $20 per month for the subscription, they have to pay 5 cents per minute to actually watch the movies. Do you have information if that applies to this plan or not yet?
Deputy Director Shea, for the record, we don't have any particular information about that at this time, but we will have more conversations available as we're entering into contract negotiations about the specific, operationalization of the fees related to the tablets.
Okay, thank you.
Callers, if you have recently joined and would like to provide public comment on AR 753, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no other callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. We'll close agenda item 4, and we'll move to agenda item 5, our final round of public comment. I want to apologize again for not taking public comment on the Zoom line in the first public comment. So let's start here in Carson City, in Las Vegas. If there's any public comment, please limit it to 3 minutes. Please state your first and last name for the record. We'll open public comment, our final public comment now. Seeing none in Carson City, do we have any public comment in Carson City?
Chair, there are no members of the public present for public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving online to Zoom, do we have any final public comment?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Debbie Stiles, Greater Southeast Advocates Group. Thank you for the chance for a closing comment. I really appreciate the changes to the ARs, and we greatly see some benefits coming in this. However, our concern is that not just that the ARs or laws or anything of that nature changes for the better or worse, but there's no accountability. So you can often have ARs change and SOPs change and laws change, but then if people are not held accountable, there's a problem. Short of an ombudsman, which, as mentioned previously, we don't have the office of yet, is there checks and balances for accountability? Because when we have tried to make known, especially to the Inspector General and other people, that there is a problem and that people need to be held accountable, or that certain behaviors need to adhere to ARs, we are met with opposition, ignored, etc. And so I know that these ARs are being changed for the better, and that's great, but is there a method of ensuring accountability to the changes?
Thank you, caller. Do we have any other public comment online?
Callers, if you have recently joined and you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you'd like to provide public comment, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no other callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you. We'll close agenda item number 5, and we'll move to agenda item 6, which is adjournment. So we will move to adjournment, and please note that this workshop has been adjourned at 11:37 a.m.